Hey everybody, just want to share a quick little insight from my study general conference this morning. While I was working out, I was listening to David O. McKay's October 1933 general conference talk. And in this talk, he was talking about the worth of man and how it's great in the sight of God, but that unfortunately, it's generally not great in the sight of man. He goes on to talk about how throughout human history, we have been ruled by aristocracy. He talks about how in the beginning, we were ruled by the aristocracy of brute force, that with the Mongolian Empire and with other empires, that might equaled right, and that if people would oppose them, they would slaughter them. If people would rebel, they would slaughter them. And that generally speaking, there were vast human rights abuses, and it was all because might equaled right, and it was the aristocracy of brute force. He mentioned that this gave way into the aristocracy of birth. This idea that because I'm a noble, I am better than you. Because I'm a noble, I have the right to abuse you. I have the right to take away your rights and do these things. And he talks about how the Magna Carta was an attempt to claw that back a little bit, but that it really ruled the world for hundreds of years, this aristocracy of birth, this idea of the divine right of kings. And then he talks about how that morphed into the aristocracy of wealth. That because I have more money than you, I can control you. I can treat you less like a person. I can use you not as an end, but as a means to an end. And he talked about how this was unjust and incorrect for any Christian to do. He talked about the need for all Christian employers to treat their employees right, to give them living wages, to treat them as real people, not as a means to an end, but as an end unto themselves. And then he talked about the need for the employee to treat their employer that way, to give them an honest day's work for an honest day's wage, and that we need to make sure that we are not, in reverse, treating them poorly. And he talked about a future date where we'd have the aristocracy of character built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ, an aristocracy where all men have the ability to come into Christ and become like him, and that this is when we will have the ushering in of the millennium in Zion. And I just love this concept of this talk, but I couldn't help but think that had David O. McKay been alive today, he probably would have added in a fourth aristocracy. Unfortunately, we didn't go from the wealth straight into character. I think right now we're in the aristocracy of credentialism. Our society today values credentials so much. We value the degree that you have, and that's a lot of times people will look down in very snobbish fashion. Oh, you don't have a master's degree yet? Or, oh, you didn't go to college, you decided to become an electrician? I'm better than you. I have 3 degrees in gender studies, and I'm better than you. And we have this aristocracy where the credentials will say, you don't have a credential, so shut up and sit down because I am better than you. And once again, just like the aristocracy of brute force, the aristocracy of birth, and the aristocracy of wealth, it's all the same thing. Until we are willing to put aside our pride and realize that all men are children of God and we can all become like Christ, we will never usher in the aristocracy of Christ and character.